UFC can be tough, and sometimes fighters go out of their way to win matches, which includes cheating. From Yoel Romero's Stoolgate scandal to Brock Lesnar's shots, here are all the UFC fighters who cheated to win. This first one was the talk of the town for quite a while. It's Anderson Silva. In UFC 148 in 2012,
fighters is fight. When you come inside, you have a ref chance for win and 50-50,
we got to see one of the biggest signs of how winners aren't always the good guys as Silva faced Chael Sonnen. It was a highly anticipated bout, and the world was ready to see two of the best players go at it, but the Brazilian boxer had other plans. He caused a lot of controversy because of his questionable behavior. When comparing the two fighters, it's clear that Sonnen's wrestling skills are more well known, while Silva's striking skills stand out. But Silva used a deceptive strategy to negate Sonnen's ground superiority, and it worked. Even though Chael was the favorite to win, things didn't end the way the masses thought they would. Eagle-eyed fans already spotted what he did and were super outraged, but they couldn't do anything other than sit and watch. Yves Lavigne gave him a verbal warning to cease the takedown after he grabbed Sonnen's shorts numerous times. He committed a foul call, yet still managed to secure the victory. Yep, it was super unfair, but hey, you know what they say about life, and while this one was agitating, this next cheater annoyed a lot more fans. It's the Stoolgate incident.
One question. I have one question for everybody here. I have a big respect for everybody, for all athletes.
Now, this was a match that had the world hooked to their screens. Kennedy completely dominated Yoel Romero in the second round of their battle, and if the bell hadn't rung to signal the end of the second round, Romero would have been defeated. So basically, before the start of the third round, Yoel Romero sat on his stool for nearly 30 seconds longer than usual. Then there was the issue with the Vaseline. UFC cutman appeared to apply too much Vaseline to Romero's face. Referee John McCarthy obviously noted it and asked Romero's cornerman to remove it. There was then some sort of miscommunication because McCarthy started the third round with Romero sitting alone on his stool in the octagon. Romero had roughly 30 more seconds to recover from the second round thrashing by the time someone came in to wipe up his face. In the end, Yoel finished him out in the third round. Kennedy considered filing an appeal with the Nevada Athletic Commission, but such decisions were seldom changed, and so he let it go. Now, if that disappointed you, this next one's gonna leave you stunned and sad. It's Josh Koscheck.
Weren't very polite, and he didn't take too kindly of it. So, he started eye gouging me, and first off, the guy's a blatant cheater. He was.
In UFC 106 and 113, Greg Hardy learned the hard way that kneading a defeated opponent is not permitted. What's sad is that the rest of the fighters learned nothing from his mistakes. At UFC 106, Anthony Johnson did this to Josh Koscheck, but it turned out that Koscheck had faked taking a knee on the ground in order to gouge Johnson in the eye. He eventually won with a rear naked choke. In UFC 113, he'd make the same sneaky move on Paul Daly. Someone give this man an award for the best liar of the century. He pretended to take a knee in the ring before an angry Semtex, who then assaulted Koscheck. All of this chaos led to Daly's dismissal, but Koscheck was let off the hook for his dishonest behavior. Do you see how unfair all of this was?
Punches weren't going to have much sting on him. That probably gave me a bit of confidence after the first round. But his ground game was stronger than we anticipated. But in my corner, if you couldn't hear him on the...
It looks like, in real life, the poor good guy never makes it out alive, until and unless he cheats. This next one is a man many of us can't get enough of. It's Daniel Cormier.
Two belts, one on each shoulder, baby. Thank you for blessing me, Dana White. I thought I was just getting one, but boy, look at that. Woo.
Yep, even your fave Daniel cheated back in the day. Did you know a towel trick helped Daniel Cormier make weight for his light heavyweight championship defense in 2017? Yep. So basically, he had a rematch with Anthony Johnson scheduled for UFC 210, but the former two-weight world champion failed to make the weight restriction by a hair. He was given time to shed the weight, but he came back a few minutes later, barely holding on to the towel that was offered so he could weigh himself clothed. He fought Johnson and won. Back then, he claimed that the scale had been adjusted and went on to keep his world championship. But he has now revealed that he did in fact lie about his weight on the day of the fight. Next up is another famous fighter who cheated their way to victory shamelessly. It's Michael Bisping.
That was by design. That wasn't a fluke. That wasn't let's just throw a head kick and see what happens. That's how good of a striker Leon is, and that's how good his coaches are for identifying.
If there was ever a bout in which UFC fans, especially American ones, hated Michael Bisping the most, it was this one. Bisping entered his battle with journeyman Jorge Rivera at the second UFC event in Australia as furious as he had ever been. Now, some say his anger was justified because of Rivera's YouTube videos mocking his nation, fighting style, family, and pretty much everything else about him. Rivera went to his knees after an early takedown from Bisping, and apparently the red mist descended over the count. He then reared back and blasted his opponent with a big knee blow to the head, which is and always has been prohibited in the UFC. While Rivera showed courage by continuing to fight after taking a headshot from Bisping, the bout was halted. This happened in the second round due to a technical knockout by referee Mark Goddard, who docked a point from Bisping. Bisping spat at Rivera's cornerman and insulted him with "go home a loser" instead of the customary polite embrace or handshake after a victor. Now, of course, what else did he expect after that illegal blow? Whilst Bisping's post-fight rage and even unlawful action were nearly understandable considering how severely he had been provoked, they did little to make him look nice in the eyes of the fans. Anyway, this next one is also a dirty fighter who cheated and won. It's none other than Rousimar Palhares. It is well known that the Brazilian fights dirty. He was fired from the UFC because he held a heel hook on Mike Pierce for too long, but he never learned his lesson. He also lost his WSOF welterweight title because he held Jake Shields in a submission for too long. But no, I didn't bring him up right now because of this. It's because at WSOF 22, he raked Shields' eyes more than once, and nothing happened to him. Shields was winning every match he was in, and it obviously didn't sit right with him. Palhares tried to move Shields away with his fingers, and it was painful just to watch him do it. And it felt like the referee was also in on it because he gave him 2 warnings but didn't take any action. After the fight, Shields was super angry and literally couldn't see. And finally, we've got the meanest of them all, our very own Brock Lesnar. Hunt was defeated by Lesnar in the UFC 200 main event by a majority decision, but it was later revealed that Lesnar had failed not 1 but 2 drug tests in the days leading up to and after the bout. But how did the authorities miss it? Apparently, the UFC was so eager for a massive draw to return that they found a way around the US ADA regulations, and basically, they let him compete without submitting to the standard 4-month testing period. In the end, Lesnar underwent a few tests before the bout and was declared the victor by unanimous decision against Hunt. Mark Hunt, in contrast to the rest of the losers on this list, didn't just sit and watch. Instead, he filed a lawsuit against the UFC and its president, Dana White, for allegedly enabling the cheater. Anyway, that's all I had for you today on UFC fighters who cheated to win.